Hello, greetings and welcome, my dear viewers and listeners. A short announcement before we get back to the story. First, as you probably noticed, I had to split this episode in two parts as well, similar to episode 8. So, similar rules apply. No Q&A under this part. You can ask your questions under part 2. Special thanks to Kartolio and Tiaboba, who returned to voice two characters, Commissar Stanislav Seregov and Commander Shoestrike. And once more, I direct special thanks to the artists who I continuously commission thanks to your support through Ko-fi. 3D Vincents, Hayden Lumpkin and Kubik Kuratko. It's thanks to their hard work and your donations, this series has its own art gallery, free of AI slop. But I would also like to extend my thanks to you, my dear viewers. We are getting very close to 5,000 subscribers, and I hope we will reach this goal soon enough. When we do, I promise I will tell you how for a time I was writing fanfiction for Sexy Space Babes universe, which should be enjoyable. So, spread the word of my work, maybe convince someone to react to the series or just one of my videos in general. It should help spread the good word of my heretical ways even further. I direct special thanks to my Patreon supporters, the $1 acolytes, $3 students, and $6.66 licensed hot heretics who support my livelihood and my ability to put some food on the table. Thank you for your continuous support of my work and this series. Now, let's not delay for a moment longer. The final act of battle of Furious Net is about to begin. More snails in the water! Twardowski shouted.
Demon spit!
Seregov cursed, spotting another wave of those annoyingly amphibious snail tanks cruising towards the island.
Kowalski, you take the right side. Pathfinders, the left. Give your missile drones clean targeting solutions.
Both teams moved to obey. Kowalski and his squad shouldered their launchers just as the Pathfinders activated their marker lights, a missile drone hovering above them. Moments later, 7 missiles roared out of their launchers towards the incoming tanks. 6 found their mark, with a single snail tank managing to dodge a direct hit. Suka! One of the specialists cursed, dropping to the ground as a crimson beam flashed past his head. One of the strange enemy walkers was advancing up the bridge, stepping over still burning wrecks. It had 4 stick-like legs and a spherical torso. 2 guns protruded from its body, one beneath the sphere firing concentrated red bolts, another above, unleashing a beam of pure death that could cut through infantry like a hot knife through butter. Thankfully, the thing couldn't fire the beam continuously, nor was it particularly precise. But the sheer fear of its destructive power kept soldiers pinned behind cover. Seregov was about to call for the tankers to open fire when the Saurus unleashed its ion cannon. A beam of white energy tore through the air and into the walker's center mass, blowing it apart. That brief moment of satisfaction vanished as a salvo of crimson bolts erupted from the smoke, smashing into the shield projected by Tau drones. More shapes were already pushing through the burning wreckage. "Sir!" His Vox operator ran up to him. "We have confirmation. The enemy has breached the automatic defenses both south and north of our position."
Marvelous. As if I didn't have enough good news already.
Seregov growled, every syllable dripping with sarcasm.
What about the enemies at our back? How's the river defense holding?
He shouted over the din of battle. "They are holding, sir. The enemy secured nothing but a weak foothold," the soldier answered.
What about the civilians?
"All have been evacuated, sir." The former Commissar glanced back towards the bridge, where fire and smoke clashed in a chaotic storm. Casualties were low. They held the superior position, and most of the enemy had to funnel across the bridge. But the bastards were still gaining ground. The enemy was already more than halfway to the island, and Seregov didn't have unlimited ammunition.
All troops.
He called over his private link to every squad leader.
Our position will soon be compromised. I intend to retreat before that happens. Prepare for a fighting withdrawal. Ready heavy weapons and artillery for rapid redeployment.
Confirmations crackled through his combeat as he strode along the line.
Controlled bursts! Controlled bursts! The bastards are using the wrecks as cover!
He roared.
Don't waste ammunition on dead enemies!
A green bolt ricocheted off the top of his red helmet. Stanislav grunted, vindicated in his choice to wear proper protection instead of a Commissar's cap. He pushed further down the line.
Let's not make this any easier for them!
He shouted, scanning his soldiers. As he spoke, another snail tank broke through the wrecks on the bridge. It charged forward, spewing crimson bolts that smashed into the barricade. A Tarelian warrior rose from behind cover, growling something in his native tongue as he hefted a Xeno-pattern las cannon and fired. A green beam lanced through the air, striking the snail's left truck and blowing it apart. Its own momentum carried it to a side, straight into the barrier, before it toppled off the bridge and crashed into the water below. The Tarelian chuckled and glanced at Seregov. "Karul strikes! Karul kills!" Before Seregov could respond, a red bolt streaked out of the smoke, headed straight for Karul, only to be intercepted by a massive round shield. A Normheim Ogren, armored from head to toe, growled something in low Gothic before looking at the Tarelian. "Thon have shield. Thon protects," the Ogren declared proudly. Karul gave him a nod of thanks. More crimson bolts followed, hammering uselessly against the Ogren's massive shield as both warriors ducked behind cover, wise enough not to test their luck against heavier guns. Seregov was thankful that the boneheads had managed to keep their tribesmen focused on protecting the little ones rather than charging the enemy, where a dozen brave Ogrens would, without a doubt, meet their end. He spotted another wave of snail tanks crossing the river. 24 of them.
More of them.
He growled.
Alright, like before, I want...
His words died in his throat as the shield protecting the city suddenly flickered and vanished. Lesser men might have frozen in shock, but Stanislav Seregov was not a lesser man.
And that's our cue!
He shouted.
Commence fighting retreat! Fighting retreat! Shields up! Grab your gear! We're repositioning to the city center!
He turned and sprinted towards his own chimera as the defenders rushed to carry out his orders. His transport waited patiently behind a thick barrier. He had positioned it there at the start of the battle, away from the main fighting vehicles, so its powerful communication system could better coordinate the entire defense. It also served as a safe haven for the combat engineers who had been working tirelessly since before the assault began. "Everything is ready, sir," reported the leader of a mixed human and Tau team, handing him a boxy contraption connected by several thick cables.
Some good news for a change.
Stanislav nodded.
Get inside and strap in. We'll be the last ones out. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
As if to empathize his words, the Hydra in the back line opened up, streams of tracer fire slicing through the air towards the incoming attack craft. Stanislav glanced towards his soldiers. They were almost done packing, but not fast enough.
Vehicles! Put some fire into the air! Don't let them strafe our lines!
He barked over the comms. APCs and IAVs, welcoming the retreating troops, swiveled their turrets skyward, spewing streams of fire at the approaching aircraft. And it actually worked. The attackers veered off, scattering under the barrage. For a heartbeat, Stanislav dared to hope it would be enough. Then he saw them. Missiles, each trailing black smoke and purple flame, arcing straight towards them.
Take cover!
He shouted, knowing it was already too late. Several shields collapsed and 2 transport went up in flames. Moments later, a second strike hit, a salvo of tank shells. Few found valuable targets, but it was clear the enemy intended to keep them pinned through sheer firepower. He grabbed the Chimera's Voxcaster and switched it on.
Move! By the Emperor and the Goddess! Move your asses!
He roared, his voice so powerful that, for a heartbeat, the battlefield seemed to fall silent in awe. The soldiers obeyed, scrambling onto transports in desperation. The vehicles surged forward the instant their passengers' boots left the ground. Several troops, Ogrins and Terrellians among them, simply started running on their own. Stanislav didn't care. They were big boys. They could handle themselves. Most importantly, everyone had finally abandoned their defensive positions and cleared a safe distance from the bridge. Just in time. Even more fire came crashing down around him, the barrier protecting the Chimera shuddering until multiple impacts. Enemy forces broke into a full charge, chasing the retreating defenders. They were less than 100 meters from the island's edge. A cruel grin spread across Seriegov's face as he flipped the switch, arming the charges.
Gentle River always told me xenophobia burns bridges to understanding.
He chuckled, eyes glinting.
Guess old habits die hard.
He slammed the red button. Explosives hidden within the bridge detonated one after another in a chain of deafening blasts. From the furthest spans to the nearest, rolling towards the island in a wave of total annihilation. Seriegov leapt into the Chimera and slammed the hatch shut.
Driver, gun it!
"Sir!" The Chimera lurched forward, treads screaming against the concrete as it tore towards the inner city. A thunderous shockwave slammed into them, propelling the APC forward. It skittered on its tracks, but the driver wrestled it back under control and sped ahead at breakneck pace through the city streets. Seriegov climbed into the cupola, threw open the hatch, and looked back. The defensive lines were now nothing but ruins, and where the bridge had once stood, there was only fire and ash. He would have celebrated, but there was no time. He still had to coordinate the retreat, and now there was another problem. Enemy air supremacy. And the pirates were wasting no time taking advantage of it. He could already see enemy craft approaching a landing zone in the heart of Shokai Island. The bastards were trying to drop troops directly in their path. He gritted his teeth.
Punch through!
He shouted over the comms.
Don't let them stop you! We can't let them cut us off!
His soldiers obeyed. Every vehicle opened up, tearing several transports apart and forcing the rest to pull back. Gunships swooped in, strafing the retreating column, only to be countered by devilfish that shot into the air, burst cannons blazing. Some even fired seeker missiles at near point-blank range. Automated defenses throughout the city joined in, while the remaining air mines darted up towards the hovering gunships and transports, sending more enemy craft spiraling into the ground in flames. It was pandemonium, but through the chaos, Seregov could still see the path to safety, and he intended to widen it. He tapped the gunner.
Light them up, Eric.
With pleasure. The cathartic boom 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 of the autocannon shook the air as Eric fired round after round into the descending gunships and dropships, forcing them to dodge or return fire in blind fury. Men and machines were dying on both sides. Several friendly vehicles went up in flames, but they were still making progress. Seregov drew his bolt pistol and began firing at targets of opportunity, when a panicked voice broke through a cacophony of war. "Jetpack troopers! Jetpack troopers above us!" Seregov looked up, only to see not just the jetpack-equipped soldiers, but also missiles fired from their packs? What insanity was this? Who puts explosive missiles on a fuel-filled jetpack? His thoughts were cut short as the missiles found their targets. A devilfish lost an engine and plummeted into the ground in flames. The Hydra, poised to greet the newcomers, was struck by two missiles and detonated in a massive fireball. The fourth missile was coming straight for him.
Shit! Hold on!
Seregov shouted as the flank of his Chimera took a direct hit. It felt as though half of his organs wanted to escape through his mouth, the other half the other way. The screeching Chimera, its left side broken and ablaze, slammed into the wall of a small hangar and came to a jarring stop. Seregov groaned, certain the crash had shattered at least one rib. Stars danced before his eyes. His ears were roaring. Wait, that wasn't ringing, that was... He turned and saw a jetpack trooper landing atop his Chimera. Up close the details were terrifying. Against all expectations, the trooper was heavily armored and wielding two pistols. Usually, units deployed from the air favored light armor for speed and agility. The only exception? Tempestus Science. But those guys didn't have a T-shaped visor, nor did they paint their armor to resemble a hornet. By a subtle twitch, Seregov realized his opponent hadn't expected him to survive. They had come to finish off a dying prey, only to find a fully conscious foe. In perfect unison, they raised their guns and fired. Hornet pulled the trigger twice. Seregov fired only once. The first blaster shot bounced off his crimson helmet. The second hit center mass, where his thick armored chestplate absorbed most of the impact. Most of it. He was fairly certain that at least two of his ribs were now broken. The single bolter round, however, flew straight into the T-shaped visor, tore through the transparent steel as if it was nothing, ripped into flesh and bone, and impacted the other side of the helmet. Only then did it explode. The headless corpse and the gore-stained helmet fell to the ground, separately. Seregov let out a groan of pain, his head and broken bones ringing. He shot an angry glare at the bloodied corpse.
Should have spent less on paint and more on plating.
He spat, glancing down at the vehicle.
Alright, who's still alive?
The crew and half of the combat engineers were shaken but alive, which would have to do.
Alright people, time for some cardio.
He growled, leaping out of the wreckage and doing his best to ignore the pain as he led his team. He scanned the area. More of the damn Hornet soldiers filled the air. Their presence and firepower allowed several enemy transports to land successfully. They were remarkably resilient, incoming fire either bouncing off or being absorbed by their thick armor. Carapace great at the very least. Seeing that the Hornets were trying to scatter his defenders and pick them off one by one, Seregov drew his power saber and activated it.
Soldiers, to me! To me!
He roared, commanding everyone's attention.
Move as one! Move as one!
They didn't need to be told twice. The soldiers formed into a semblance of a cohesive unit, with Ogrins raising their massive shields to protect the group from incoming fire. Seregov led from the front, picking targets and doing his best to shepherd his people out of a closing trap. More Hornet soldiers appeared, this time wielding even deadlier weapons. Mini-rockets, missiles, and even some kind of rail rifle that punched straight through an Ogren's shield and the Abhuman himself, killing the giant instantly. The defenders returned fire as best they could, but the Hornets' heavy armor proved more than adequate, shrugging off all but the most devastating strikes. Even Seregov's bolt pistol had limited effect. A direct hit to the chest didn't kill a Hornet, though it at least forced the attacker to break off his assault. Time was running out. More pirates were being deployed right behind them. The Hornets didn't even need to kill them all, just slow them long enough for the other foes to catch up. Not to mention the army waiting on the other side of the river, ready to cross, bridge or no bridge.
Punch through! Punch through!
He roared, leading the charge and firing at the annoying Hornets. His words and actions kept the group moving, even as more and more soldiers fell. The survivors dwindled with every passing minute. They were pushing through the dockyard when a dozen Hornet soldiers blocked their path. Mini-rockets and heavy blasters slammed into their shield wall, forcing them to halt. A second later, the fire ceased, and it quickly became clear why. A warrior landed ahead of him, brandishing a vibrating sword. He raised it in a motion of challenge. Whoever these warriors were, they clearly had a code of honor. Not intimidated, Seregov holstered his empty bolter pistol and stepped out of the shield wall, brandishing his power saber with a flurry. Both opponents stared at each other for 3 tense seconds before charging. Seregov propelled himself forward with his feet alone, while the Hornet used his jetpack to soar into the air, swinging the vibro sword downward with the intent to cleave the Commissar in two. Stanislav halted his advance and raised his saber into a defensive stance. The Hornet didn't hesitate. The vibro sword came straight down, aimed to smash through the power saber and finish him. But the moment the vibro sword met the power saber, it was the sword that was sliced in two. The energy field surrounding the saber cut through the metal as if it were nothing. The upper half of the sword harmlessly bounced off Seregov's helmet, and the warrior looked stunned, eyes locked on the broken blade in his hand. Seregov didn't hold back.
From the mother's cradle?
He roared, slashing down. His power saber cut through the warrior's armor with contemptuous ease.
To the warrior's grave!
He finished his war cry, reversing the blade in a second upward strike. His opponent barely avoided death, though he didn't avoid the blade entirely. The first strike tore through his chestplate, rending a deep, bloody gash. The second caught the edge of his helmet as he leapt backward, adding another vertical line to the T-shaped visor. The warrior hit the ground, and Seregov prepared to finish him, until the foe raised his right gauntlet, releasing a torrent of fire and activating his jetpack. Skidding along the road, the Hornet soared into the air. Seregov screamed, dropped to the ground, and rolled, putting out the flames. Thankfully, his coat was fire-resistant. His eyebrows, however, were definitely singed.
Bastard!
He shouted as his soldiers rushed to his aid, patting away the fire and helping him up. The other Hornets, seeing their leader fleeing, retreated without firing a shot, giving him the opening he needed.
Everyone to the damn bridge!
They rushed through the docks, chased by pirates, but notably, no Hornets appeared to slow their retreat. As they ran, Seregov heard fighting ahead. He feared the bridge was lost, only to see several chimeras and devilfish holding the line. "Here they are!" someone shouted. "Covering fire!" Just like that, the vehicles opened up on their pursuers, forcing them back. Seregov slowed to catch his breath, stopping near the old Liman Ras. "You took your time, Commissar." Philip Wozik smiled, looking down from the cupola.
Your orders were to get to the other side.
Stanislav replied, a note of irritation in his voice. "Not without you, sir. We didn't leave you behind on Stygia 9. We won't do it here." Seregov chuckled, genuinely grateful. He then looked at the bridge and noticed more Hornets, still stationed there.
Fine then. Ogrets, clear the bridge. Wounded to transports. Infantry first. Vehicles will cover our retreat across the bridge. Move, soldiers. We're almost there.
In less than 10 minutes, the bridge was cleared, and all remaining forces were safely on the other side. He stepped over the corpse of a female Hornet, her body broken and bloody on the bridge, and turned towards the command spire.
Blow the charges. Regroup, rearm, and get ready for more action.
He commanded his soldiers.
I'm going to HQ to assess our current situation.
As he entered the command spire, charges set on the two overbridges detonated. They weren't half as destructive as the previous one, but were powerful enough to sever Shokai Island from the rest of the city. Though costly, the fighting retreat had been a success. Seregov could only hope that Commander True Strike was faring just as well. Die, insect! Ravax roared, unleashing every weapon at his disposal. True Strike dodged the massive plasma ball, the torrents of liquid flame, and incoming crimson bolts, only a handful striking her shield. She fired back, plasma bolts splattering harmlessly against Rancor's energy barrier. Teeth gritted in frustration. She assessed her options.
Nightclaw's enemy confirmed. We lack sufficient firepower to take him down. Commence Kayon. Lure him deeper into the city.
True Strike ordered her battlesuit teams. "What of the breach, Chasseur?" one of the pilots asked.
We can't close it with Rancor holding it open. Neutralizing this foe takes priority. All other units will engage in urban warfare, slowing the enemy's advance as much as possible.
She said, soaring high and hiding behind a building as Rancor fired multiple missiles in pursuit.
Either way, with our shields down and enemy air supremacy, the inner wall is compromised. We'll be fighting in the streets for as long as we can.
Understood, Chasseur. Ready when you are.
Scenario K-12. Commence Kayon.
she ordered, diving towards Rancor once more. Her crisis suit jetpacks roared as she closed in on the giant walker. The massive machine turned to face her, turrets tracking her every movement, but its bulk made it slow, while she was fast. She slashed at its shield with her fusion blade, the radiant energy breaking against the shimmering barrier as she zipped past. Ravax laughed. Was that supposed to hurt? You are more of a fail strike than a true strike. Koka scowled inside her cockpit. The jab was more personal than the pirate could possibly understand, but it was irrelevant. Her strike wasn't pointless. Shields react differently depending on which weapon lands a hit. Solid rounds were deflected, plasma shots absorbed. The fusion blade, while ineffective, was redirected, split, and partially absorbed. The AI in her suit was already compiling a profile of a shield's capabilities. Hammerhead's rail cannon would likely prove mostly ineffective, but ion cannons and explosives might work.
Time for more testing.
She muttered over the closed comm, then addressed Ravax aloud.
Well, you didn't impress me either. All that talk about the power of Rancor, and yet you haven't landed a single hit.
Ravax roared and fired his plasma obliterator, which she dodged effortlessly. She doubted she could do the same against an Imperial knight. She reassessed the enemy mech's threat level. It was larger than a standard Questoris pattern knight of the Imperium, approaching the bulk of a heavy Dominus pattern. Yet, unlike the Imperial design, its configuration and armaments were chaotic. This wasn't a factory-made weapon. Its ramshackle construction, uneven coloration, and crude assembly reminded her more of the orc walkers than any formal military machine. Ravax fired 6 missiles in pursuit. She carved a hole in the side of one of the domes and hid inside, the missiles missing her and detonating against the building. Moments later, Rancor punched through the wall and roared, fixing its gaze on the hovering battlesuit in the center of the dome. It was a massive machine capable of immense destruction, yet, for all its power, her warrior's intuition told her this wasn't a weapon of war. This was a weapon of terror. Ravax laughed and unleashed his heavy flamer, bathing the dome in liquid flame. True Strike dodged the inferno and fired back, her blue bolt striking Rancor's energy shield harmlessly, while its blaster rounds hit her shield with similar impotence. Well, not complete impotence. The strain was beginning to weaken her defenses. Koka cut her way out of the dome and surged into the open air of the city, her scans confirming that Rancor was close behind. The massive walker tore through the wall with barely any effort, its claw weakening the structure before its sheer bulk crushed through. Koka fired a few shots to grab its attention, then led the mechanical behemoth deeper into the city. The beast was built to destroy buildings, crush helpless defenders, and spread terror among its victims. Shields and heavy armor gave it impressive protection, allowing it to withstand severe punishment. It was relatively fast in a straight line, but it lacked agility. This was its primary flaw. If the monster was forced to face a smaller Questoris knight, True Strike was certain it would lose. Its lack of agility would allow a knight to outmaneuver and cut the machine within minutes. But that wasn't its greatest weakness. No, its true vulnerability was its pilot, Ravax himself. From the Rancor's movements and decisions, she knew one thing for certain. Ravax had never faced an opponent capable of challenging Rancor directly. He had never faced a foe who could fight back with confidence. That was his weak point, a flaw she would exploit until both monsters lay dead beneath her feet. "Stop running away, you damnable mosquito!" Ravax roared, unleashing a torrent of blaster bolts into the air. "Come here so I can crush you!"
Oh, what happened, monster?
Koka taunted, dodging effortlessly and letting loose a fury of plasma fire, more to irritate than harm, driving the alien warlord into rage.
Should I slow down so you can keep up?
"Curse you!" Ravax bellowed, charging after her. She led him towards the military district, which wasn't far. The trap was already set. Now she just needed to get him into the right position.
Noadel, are you ready?
Koka asked over the cadre net. "Yes, Chasseur. Both cadres are in position," he replied.
Good. Did you deal with the enemies who crash-landed at the spaceport?
She asked, dodging another crimson bolt. "As much as I could. There were no more than 24 enemies on that transport. Intercepted communications identified them as Mandalorians of Clan Vargir. We eliminated half, the rest scattered. Drones are searching for them, and all units have been warned. I couldn't spend more time hunting them since you were already engaging Rancor and leading it this way." He hesitated. "I'm also getting reports that the situation in the north is dire, and the same Mandalorians are behind the enemy success there."
I see.
True Strike muttered, glancing at the tactical map. Her attention was split between guiding Rancor into the trap and monitoring the battlefield.
After we deal with Rancor, redeploy your cadre north to counter their advance. Recall 2 stealth teams back into the city. They will hunt the Mandalorians who evaded you before they cause any real damage.
"Understood, Chasseur. I see your approach. We are awaiting your signal,"
Good. Let's make a show of it.
she said, muscles tensing as she waited for a perfect opportunity. Rancor fired one of its missiles, and this time she let it hit. Her shields barely held. She plummeted to the ground, one engine offline, faking a crash. She landed, or at least pretended to, in the middle of a training yard at the edge of a military base district. The open space left no cover for a monster the size of Rancor. She played her part, struggling to get up as if disabled. Rancor charged straight at her, letting out a mechanical roar that shook the air. She lifted her plasma rifle, firing bolt after bolt, each striking harmlessly against the crimson behemoth protective shield. "I have you now!" Ravax roared as he advanced. Rancor unleashed all its weapons, raising its shimmering claw and flamer for a crushing downward strike. Rancor unleashed all its weapons, raising its shimmering claw for a crushing downward strike, ready to flatten her crisis suit like an empty can. Her shields strained under the concentrated barrage. At the last second, she dashed backwards, her jet engines no longer faking damage. The claw smashed into the ground, hitting nothing but dirt. Koka shot skyward, grunting as her shield finally collapsed, and a few shots grazed her. She climbed higher, dodging incoming fire until she hovered roughly 50 meters above the furious Rancor. "You can't run forever, insect!" Ravax roared, bloodthirst in his voice. "I will get my claws around your neck. It's only a matter of time." Koka chuckled, a sound that stunned Ravax into silence.
You misinterpreted my actions, Warlord.
She taunted.
I wasn't running.
She sent a silent signal over the cadrenet.
I was luring you.
Before Ravax could react, the very ground beneath him detonated. The mechanical monster screeched in what must have been pain as it fell several meters. The underground storage unit, converted into an anti-night mine, exploded into a smoking crater, burying Rancor up to its waist. It was a neat trick the Tau had learned against Imperial Knights and Titans. Shields might be impressive, but they didn't extend underground, leaving an obvious weak point, one exploited here against Rancor.
Commence the attack!
She ordered, and her soldiers obeyed. The might of two cadres emerged from hiding, 3 hammerheads, 2 skyrays, 6 broadsides, and 20 crisis suits opened fire in perfect coordination. Dozens of fire warriors and pathfinders added their own volleys into the carefully prepared cauldron. Rancor's shield came under attack from multiple directions. The reactor whined in protest, beginning to falter under the overwhelming assault. Ravax screamed in rage over the speakers, firing all remaining guns and missiles. The Tau were ready. Hammerheads, skyrays, and several devilfish unleashed flares and dodged the best they could. Still, 1 devilfish and 1 crisis suit were destroyed by the sheer volume of fire. Moments later, the plasma obliterator struck, hitting one of the broadsides. "Damnable Tau! I will skin you alive! I will eat your livers! You hear me? I will slaughter all of you!" Ravax bellowed.
Overwhelm his shields and finish him off.
Koka commanded. Despite the severe damage to the mechanical monster's legs and its awkward, buried position, it was still standing. She reassessed the threat level. The shields on that thing were impressive, stronger than those on an Imperial Knight. Still, it didn't matter. Rancor was trapped. It fired blindly in all directions, unable to break free. It was only a matter of how many volleys they would need to fire before the monster fell. "Commander, look out!" Chassel Nomad shouted over the cadrenet. Alarms blurred in her ears as she dodged to the side as a missile screamed past. The threat wasn't the Rancor. Pirate gunships were punching through the anti-air fire and coming to their warlord's rescue.
Send all remaining aerial mines to stop them.
She roared.
We can't let Rancor escape.
As if to spite her, Rancor began to shred free from its trap. Though clearly damaged, its legs still functioned, and with the leverage of its massive claw, it started to break loose. "You can't kill me, True Strike! None of you can!" Ravax laughed as more starfighters strafed their positions. "I am Ravax the Red, Reaver of Outer Rim. I will not be defeated so easily." She cursed under her breath, dodging incoming fire. Unlike the lumbering Rancor, the gunships and starfighters were far more agile. 2 crisis suits were blasted into pieces, and a hammerhead, its ion cannon flaring, lost an engine. There were too many of them, and when she scanned the attackers, she understood why they hurled themselves into the hail of fire. Those weren't manned starfighters. Those were drones. She suspected a few of Ravak's people were loyal enough to risk their lives for him, but machines were loyal and easy to replace. Her fury grew at seeing the same drone swarm tactic the Tau used, now turned against her.
Break formation. Do not let them shoot you down. Pathfinders, mark light Rancor. Call in seeker missiles from the launches deeper inside the city.
She commanded, turning her attention to the incoming starfighters as her fusion blade and plasma rifle blazed. She danced through the sky, showing everyone why she earned the rank of Chasson. She shot down 3 starfighters and cleaved another in 2 with her blade as it tried to ram her. But she paid the price. Her shield generator burned out, overwhelmed and damaged in an explosion from one of the starfighters. Her plasma rifle overheated, the barrel warping under the constant strain. Another strafing run forced her to the ground to escape a stream of crimson bolts.
You failed, True Strike. Ravak's Red is still standing.
She looked up, fury blazing as she saw Rancor stepping out of a crater. She nearly feared it had all been for nothing. Then the Seeker missiles struck the beast, one after another. The first slammed into the shield. It held. The second struck. The shield flickered. The third hit. The shield broke. Shrapnel punched through the generator on the Rancor's back, destroying it. Now was their chance.
Kill him.
She roared over the Cadrenet as she charged.
Destroy him.
Shots hammered Rancor as Ravaks barked in fury and returned fire.
You think I need shields and door?
He screamed, though a note of fear crept into his voice.
I will slaughter you all the same.
She could hear it. The fear, the uncertainty, the realization that he was no longer untouchable. Shot after shot seared his armor and shredded parts of a hateful machine. She aimed her plasma rifle, but it refused to fire. The barrel flickered and failed. She discarded it and fixed her eyes on her target. The target that had finally noticed her.
Oh no, you don't!
Ravaks growled as he trained his plasma obliterator on her.
You die here and now!
True Strike was committed to the charge. With her shield generator dead, she wouldn't survive the hit. Just then, as life started flashing before her eyes, the plasma obliterator was destroyed. Rancor and Ravaks screamed in pain, fury, and disbelief. A hammerhead with a rail cannon slid back behind a cover as more starfighters strafed the area. The gunner had given her the opening she needed, and she wouldn't waste it.
You insolent insects!
Ravaks roared as she landed on top of Rancor's cockpit. She raised her fusion blade, blood running cold.
I told you I would take your head.
She snarled and thrust the fusion blade down. The azure blade of pure energy sliced through Rancor's armor effortlessly. Half a second later, she heard Ravak's agonized scream, which wasn't a good sound. Corpses don't scream. She raised the blade again, ready to finish the job, when Rancor's mechanical tentacles, tipped with shock spikes, stabbed into her suit unleashing torrents of electricity. She screamed as her neural link overloaded. Instinctively, she hit the jetpacks and jumped away, but the crisis suit systems were fried. She plummeted and crashed hard into the ground. Stars danced before her eyes. Several onboard systems were dead or unresponsive, but she still had visual on Rancor. The monster was retreating, its left arm gone, the right arm oddly idle.
This isn't the end, True Strike!
Ravak screamed over the speakers, chased by plasma fire.
You only prolong the inevitable.
Rancor ducked behind a building, avoiding a final tank salvo. She wanted to pursue and kill the warlord, but she had no strength left. True Strike lay on the ground, her body burning with pain. Oversuits landed nearby, and her comrades' voices drifted toward her. The last thing she saw before drifting into the darkness was a small energy shield flickering to life over the city center. Backup generators had finally come online. The heart of the city was protected once more. It would buy them time, though she wasn't sure if it would be enough.